The Legend of John Henry. John Henry was born into a family of enslaved people. When he was just a boy, he had to do the works of a full-grown man. He grew so fast that sometimes the pants he put on this morning were too short by nightfall. Soon he was the biggest man around and the strongest too. When the Civil War ended, black people were no longer enslaved, but life was still hard because they were not treated as equal citizens. John Henry needed to find a job. Who will hire me? He wondered. At the time, railroad companies were hiring workers to build tracks all across America. The work was hard and dangerous, but John Henry was brave and strong. So, like many other black men who had once been enslaved, he went to work on the railroad. John Henry became a steel driver. Every day, he swung his 20-pound hammer over and over again. Another man would hold a drill bit against a rock. Then John Henry would hit the end of the drill bit with his hammer. He broke up rocks and dug tunnels through hills to make a path for the tracks. The other workers liked John Henry. He worked harder and faster than 3 other men put together. John Henry had a deep, booming voice, and the other men enjoyed singing work songs with him. One day, the railroad tracks ran smack into Big Bend Mountain. Big Bend was so huge that the railroad couldn't be built around it. A tunnel would have to be built through the mountain instead. But don't worry, John Henry said. That old mountain is just a rock, and smashing through rocks is what I do. The men worked fast, and John Henry works fastest of all. They hammered away at Big Bend Mountain, but their boss wasn't happy because he wanted the tunnel finished even faster. The boss said he would fire the men if the tunnel wasn't done on time. Then one day, a little man in a fancy suit arrived at the work camp. He was selling a steam power machine that could drill to rock. His machine was the size of a locomotive, and it spit fire smoke into the air. My machine can drill faster than all of your workers, said the salesman to the boss. But most of the men looked down and shook their heads. They feared he was right, but John Henry spoke up. That machine can't beat me, he roared. The other men raised their heads and cheered. Everyone came running to watch the contest. John Henry stood tall in Big Bend Mountain. He grabbed a hammer in his mighty hands. The salesman pulled the levers on his machine, and it made an awful noise. When my machine wins, you want to buy it. It will replace all these people, he yelled to the boss. John Henry knew he had to beat the machine. If the machine won, the boss would fire the men and use the machine to drill the Big Bend Mountain. But if John Henry won, the boss wouldn't want the machine. He kept paying the men. For the first time in his life, John Henry looked kind of small, or maybe the machine just looked big, but that didn't scare John Henry. Ooh, the whistle blew, and the contest began. John Henry groaned as he swung his hammer into the rock. He heard the machines groan too. A man is better than a machine, he said under his breath. John Henry swung his hammer at quite a lightning. He put all his strength into breaking through rocks. He pushed ahead of a machine and didn't look back. Whoo! The whistle blew again. The contest was over. John Henry had hammered through almost twice as much rocks as the machine. John Henry won. But the contest was too much for John Henry. He was too strong even for his own heart. While the men were still cheering, he sat down against a rock and died, hammer in his hand. The other workers were sad to lose John Henry. From that day on, they sang a new song as they worked. It was a song about John Henry, the steel driving man.